On the dancing this time. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Workplaces That Work conversation. I danced in because Sunaina brings that kind of energy with her when I get a chance to do her stuff. That's just our way of opening. Welcome, everyone. Sunaina, you can say hi. All right. So today on Workplaces That Work, it's going to feel like we're shifting lanes a little bit, but still definitely on track because I've had a couple of conversations in prior weeks about the systems. When we say workplaces that work, there's a lot of focus on the systems, which is intentional. Well, I work a lot with employee resource groups. I'm an employee resource group consultant. I do a lot of speaking and have conversations with leaders. And yes, I definitely want to be intentional about bringing these conversations and these topics up around how we set up the systems within our organization for changes that work for people long term in a very sustainable way. So that's the crux of it. And so we've had different conversations around succession planning, around psychological safety, building our leadership pipeline. But ultimately, workplaces systems are made up of people. And sometimes the question is not how we fix the organization. And we all know that it takes a minute for the organizations to get fixed. Is how do we lead ourselves inside of systems that are very imperfect, politically charged, high pressure, constantly shifting. So what does that responsibility look like, and what are some tips and strategies? And today I have somebody whose work actually sits at that intersection. And to bring Sunaina in, I will tell this professional auntie label and story because I love it when LinkedIn algorithm actually does what it's supposed to do and brings my people into my world. And that's how I slid into a DM because she was being a professional auntie on LinkedIn, doing her thing, sharing her tips. And I'm like, this is the kind of energy I need to bring into these. And so when we are talking about having your own professional board of directors, if you haven't heard that term before, you should look it up. You always want to have somebody in your corner who is your voice of reasoning around employee experience, your HR person, the person that fills that seat in your life, not just a mentor who does everything, but somebody that sees how the system works and how you can work within the system. I think professional aunties, Nina, is somebody that you all need in your corner and on your personal board of directors. So you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So yes, LinkedIn's professional auntie. But Lola, thank you so much for having me. So I come to this conversation today with about 20 years experience of working with leaders behind some of the world's most iconic brands to try and bring humanity back into the workplace. So I've been doing this for a lot of years. I bring the perspective of being in-house and now outside doing my own thing. I run my own consultancy, The Human Difference. The professional auntie is actually a part of that business. And I work one-to-one with individuals because the world we're living in is so tough. I mean, if we just look at the last 5 or 6 years, it's been wild. We are in utter chaos and people need an auntie, a professional one. And I just wanted to also say we are having a very human conversation today. You know, we've just had a chat before we came on live. Everything I bring to the table is my lived experience. And so, yes, you know, it'll be a bit fiery and it may be provocative and bold. It's who I am. I think that's the auntie license to be able to do that. But these are lived experience stories, largely of my own and some of those that I've witnessed and observed along the way.
Absolutely. I love it. So a little bit more about your organization and maybe your journey, your industry journey to this point.
Yeah, so 20 years predominantly as a diversity and inclusion strategist. I was doing this way back in 2012 when I used to work for PwC, and it was literally, what is this concept of diversity and inclusion? What does it mean for our people at the time when I was there? And what does it mean for their clients? And so my grassroots education was being part of the team that put together the first DEI strategy for PwC globally, which was 250,000 employees over 157 different countries. So that was the best schooling to really understand diversity, to understand what it truly means to have people feel that sense of inclusion and belonging, what cultural inclusion looks like, what it looks like from all the different dimensions, not just your personal identity, but across the board of generations in the workplace, right? So when I was doing this work, Gen Z just entered the workplace in the last few years of me being in-house. So many dynamics that worked, that didn't work, that rubbed up against each other, but it was the absolute best schooling ever.
Learning by doing. I love it. And that's why I really wanted to spotlight the background. Like, we're not just talking here. There's a lot of experience, there's a lot of insights, there's a lot of stories that you've gathered, lived experience, as you said, along your professional journey. So excited to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. So maybe a little more of setting the frame. I could have had a conversation with you about a whole lot of things. I think one of the things we did the first time we connected was kind of like, this is where there's a need right now. There's so much happening. And I think if you are in the B2B space and you work with organizations, sometimes it feels so like, what's the point? Like, exhausting. But then you think about the people that work within these organizations, and you have to keep going, because ultimately that's why you're doing what you're doing, is for that one person that is going to fuel the difference. So maybe a little bit about, we landed on the topic leading self within systems. So if you want to share some context for how we even came up with that topic, what does that even mean? How are we talking about personal responsibility? Are we talking about over-functioning versus agency? Can you help us understand what this topic means?
To me, I think leading self, it really comes back to knowing who you are, right? You really have to be grounded in your why, your values, your purpose. Why are you showing up for this job? Why are you, putting yourself through the career path that you are? What is important to you? Because of those things that are important to you today, are those things that were important to you yesterday still important to you today? Sometimes we just function on autopilot and we just chase the, I would say, expectations that are set out ahead of us, the typical career trajectory, the typical social expectation and cultural expectation. But is that really who you are and what you need, what you want? I think going back to what I said earlier, the world is so disrupted. So clearly that's going to have an impact somewhere on you personally. Where is your moral compass? Is the environment you're in right now conducive to enabling or supporting you to know yourself better, to serve yourself better? Because if you don't know you, how can you help others? How can you fix a system? How can you really make sense or even survive the chaos around you and the toxicity? It's only when we're anchored in our sense of self that we can really effectively move forward to serve our greater good, but then bring others along on that journey with us. Without that, everything is just a huge mess. I mean, we talk about things like burnout. We've diluted language so much. Burnout today has been diluted to be used as much as we used to use the word migraine. And I'm not saying it's not important. I know how severe burnout is, but I think corporate have got so used to this language that leaders don't listen to it or treat it with the same urgency how they used to. So that means even more we have to show up for ourselves. I know what happens too well when we don't. That is one of my lived experiences, right? So first and foremost, know who you are, know what you're showing up for, and then do your best to stand by that as you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I was still stuck on the statement you just made about burnout being used so much to being compared to, like, thrown around as a word to just, I'm tired. I mean, burnout is deep. And I think also reminds me of wellness, wellness initiatives, right? Kind of everybody got into wellness initiatives and stuff
Yeah.
in 2020 when we were all on lockdown, and now it seems to also be normalized to
Yeah.
do a program and say we are all about wellness with just a program that is a talk or something.
So let me tell you something quite absurd, which is also why my career has taken this journey. So I used to be where I was at the time, the DEI lead for the region, the wellbeing lead as well. These roles kind of interconnected, taking care of other humans who are vulnerable and hurting. Because when you're in an employee resource group, it's people coming together with shared identities, but also shared pain. There is, the shared challenges, the shared struggles internally and in the organization, right? So I'm a well-being lead who then burns out so bad I ended up having a stroke and I lost my speech and hearing. This is from the well-being lead, right? So I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I wasn't aligned to my sense of self. I wasn't leading myself, but I was definitely making sure everybody else was okay. And I think that's why this conversation is important. The work we both do is important, and helping people to understand that conversations about burnout, conversations about being values aligned, principles aligned, knowing where your moral compass is in a world like today is so important, because when you lose that, it derails everything for you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's the whole point of having this conversation. So if you're watching live or getting this on replay and you have questions and you have input, please feel free to drop it in the chat as well. Because the whole point of this is to share ways and ground individuals with tools, with tips, with strategies on how to act with clarity and integrity, especially thinking of ERG leaders. I have a lot of ERG, employee resource group, business resource group leaders in my network, people that are super passionate about the work that they are doing within their organizations for other people. How do we keep doing all of that without carrying the whole system and harming our own self? And so, the word self is not a crime.
Absolutely
You can
not.
be selfish inside the system and take care of yourself. And that's the whole point of this space. So thank you so much for sharing your own personal experience, because I know for a fact that's the experience of a lot of us working within fast-paced organizations, which I just wrote a post article about thriving environments and job posts, right? When there's this phrase, like, what does that signal to you? If you've been burned out before or you've worked within a corporate organization, when you see that on a job posting, we are fast paced, we need somebody that thrives in a high pace. Like, what does this signal to you? And then asking hiring managers, please break down what it is you're trying to say, instead of using this phrase as a copy and paste from a template.
And the well-being strategy is download 5 apps, which we are right. And you're like, no.
Yep. But thank you for sharing that. All right. So you work closely with leaders and individuals who are carrying a lot. And, feel free to share stories, of course, without sharing names. I'd love to explore maybe the reasoning behind these, right? I talk about ERGs a lot. The people that care, they are very passionate about the causes that the groups and, the individuals within the spaces. Maybe explore some of the, how did we get to where we are in the first place? Because part of the harm with well-being challenges is we don't know. You don't know you're feeling burnout when you're getting to it. I mean, we don't have to wait until you crash and burn. So why do high performers absorb invisible labor? Are there some early signs that people should watch out for to make sure that they can pull things back and take care of themselves? What are some early signs and signals that people should pay attention to when they're working within systems?
Do you know what? it doesn't matter, because high performing people like your audience and the people you and I work with don't listen to those signals. I didn't listen, right? Does it matter what they are? Because we're not listening. But I think if we walk into situations, sorry if I threw you off there with that, but
no, I love it. Keep going.
But I think if we're more aware, if we tune into our environment more and understand, again, why we're doing, reacting and being who we are, the way we are, maybe that's more what we need to pay attention to. Because if I say to you, oh, if you're getting brain fog, or if this is happening, yeah, and someone will listen to it and go, and then go into work tomorrow and do the same thing all over again. But what I would say is that those people who are the high performers, who are just giving and giving and giving and giving, I would say for a second, stop, right? Understand that you're 100%, sorry, even your 80% is someone else's possible 60%, right? We are high, as high performers, our work ethic is off the scale. But I'm not saying bring your work ethic down and compromise yourself, not at all, but understand what you're bringing in comparison to someone else. And then I think when burnout kicks in, it's when, I always say that mediocre majority population individual gets promoted and, excels and recognized and celebrated. When you're here busting into your 100 plus, your 120% that you're giving the job, ERG folks especially, they're doing multiple jobs, the day job, the side job, the ERG lead job, even as a member of a network. It's all additional work. A lot of high performers are carrying unseen labor. They don't realize the magnitude of that on your health, your well-being, and just the way you're showing up. So I think it's not about the signs. It's about read the room, read your own space. Look at how you are already giving so much without beating yourself up that you're not giving enough, or without saying all of this, but I still haven't got promoted and I'm still waiting to be seen and recognized and given that iconic opportunity on whatever project. It's not you, it's the system. And if other people are getting promoted and not putting out half the work that you are to the quality and standard that you are, it's not a you thing. And I think people need to understand that very quickly.
All right. I still with ERGs, because I work a lot with ERG leaders or companies that have ERGs, and there's the conversation that is happening with the ERG leadership and strategy. And then there's the conversation, the reality of what I'm seeing with the leaders. And sometimes, as you said, ERG leaders carry so much because they care so much. And maybe to the point earlier is you want to carry the weight of the whole system all by yourself. And it's okay to step away. Sometimes the best advice I can give an ERG leader is take a break. It's like, if I don't do it, nobody else will. Then that's fine.
Let it break. Let it break.
Yeah. Step away, because you need to protect yourself. And I think that's the burden of caring too much within a system that needs so many people to be aligned for things to get to where you want it to be.
I love that you said that. Walk away. Absolutely. Let it break. Let them understand the value you bring. Because whilst people keep giving, why would a leader care to change anything? Why would a leader bring in more budget, more resources? Because from they're very selfish kind of, their own perspective, everything's getting delivered. Yeah, I hear you. You're tired. It's fine. I'll listen to you being tired, but I know you're still going to keep delivering.
Yeah, it's still going to get done. So
exactly, drop it and let it break. I think another thing is these humans that we're talking about, right? They're high performing and they're hurting hard. They need to justify things before they take action, right? And they need tangible evidence. They literally need a business case to justify why they should rest, or why they should do things differently, or why they don't need to give 400%. And I'm saying that because I was that person, right? And I think just the sweetest piece of data to take into any conversation, to give yourself breathing space, step back, ask for more budget, ask for more support in an ERG or your day job, is grab that job description that you applied for and the job that you're working in today. And I guarantee you, the way you're delivering and the way you're working is probably the next level up already to what your job description said. Or that job description of the original role that you were supposed to step into is nothing like what you're delivering today. Whether that's a level up, sideways, you're wearing 3 different roles, you're doing the job of 4 people, whatever that is. And it's only when people see that in black and white that it hits home that this is the magnitude of what I'm doing. And then you get that boldness, that energy they need to have braver conversations, to stick up for themselves more, to bring in boundaries, to have non-negotiables. Because without that tangible, let's call it evidence for want of a better word, nothing will change.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that kind of, you mentioned the word boundaries, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask. And that was one of the things that I also share as well, is when the system feels heavy, what are some ways that we can stay human while still being effective? What are some tools? What are some strategies that we can leverage as individuals working within organization? And I think boundary setting is one of it. So you want to talk a little bit more about setting boundaries?
I think boundaries seems like a dirty word to a lot of people, and it makes them very uncomfortable, because to them boundaries mean saying no, and people don't like saying no, right? It's a human trait for many. So I think, number one, rebrand it. Non-negotiables, like team alignment, whatever you want to call it something and honor it. Once you've made it clear what it is that you won't compromise on, where you need to hold your ground, you have to honor it, because as and until you don't, why would anyone else? I could say to you, Lola, don't phone me after 7 p.m. Lola, don't. And you do, and I'm still going to pick up that phone. Or if I missed your call, I'm going to call you back or leave a voice note, really apologetic. I'm sorry. I'm enabling your bad behavior.
Right.
I'm enabling you. I'm telling you that's okay. I had a boundary. I didn't take it seriously. Why should you? So let's just carry on. So put your stakes in the ground, understand what your boundaries are, call them non-negotiables. For some reason, the human psychology, that language feels better for some people. And then onboard everyone as to what this is. You can't just decide in yourself, this is my boundary or non-negotiable, and let it be so.
Yeah.
So if you're a team leader, if you're leading an ERG, or even if you're not and you're more junior, encourage a moment of alignment across the network or across the team where everyone sits down and everyone's encouraged and empowered to define 1 or 2 absolute non-negotiables. You may find there's commonalities. So if 3 or 4 people are like, okay, we're not doing, workloads to this degree after a certain hour, or ERG work can only take up 5 hours a month, whatever that looks like, stick to them and respect and honor each other's. So you've clearly identified your boundary in yourself. You've clearly had a meaningful moment to communicate that to everyone else, answer their questions, maybe even compromise that, okay, this is how I would love to hold my boundary, but I understand work is projects work, busy season, whatever happens in the business has to be the priority. How might you be flexible? How might you accommodate? And then move forward together. Because when you've made a statement of that and you've agreed and aligned on it, people are more likely to respect it and work with it. And of course, in the beginning, you may have to copy, paste, repeat your messaging a few times before people reprogram their behavior. Yeah. But ultimately, you move forward together in that. It's not just one person struggling to say, I need to do this and I need to hold myself here. It's safety in numbers.
Yeah, and of course, ERGs are definitely a representative of these challenges that happen even within work teams. I'm going to share James. James has a question that I'm going to put on here.
Hello,
Um,
James.
because I know it might be a good one for you to also touch on, right? Because as we're talking about organizational priorities and those shifting priorities, and then the individuals that have to face it. Because I was thinking of the topic I was sharing about fast-paced environments. Like, what does that really mean? Is that tells me as an organization, does that statement mean that this is the kind of space where I don't have a voice, where leadership changes things overnight and we just have to roll with it? And so that's exactly the scenario James just shared, is when workplaces change and the orientation poses ethical questions. How should an individual manage these? This is the carrying systems question when we're trying to carry an entire system on our shoulders.
I was going to maybe save this for the spicy ending to this, but here we
It's
go.
professional auntie moment. We can go spicy
Literally,
whenever we want.
literally. And by the way, I totally didn't have comments in my view, and I do now. So hello to those few people that I know. I see Junior there as well. Thank you. What did I want to say? Yes, I wanted to say this towards the end, right? But I think, look, we're all grown-ups, right? We do have responsibilities. We have maybe humans at home to take care of. We have bills. We have all of this. But ultimately, if their orientation, and I'm looking at the exact wording here, poses ethical questions, it's where is your boundary in that entire situation? Is it time to move on? Or do you stay and still keep trying, persist, course correct, navigate yourself? Like, you need to evaluate what your boundaries are and what you're weighing up against each other. And I know I say that, and it's an awful time to transition careers, look at other opportunities. It's not impossible, but yes. But I think that's one drastic option that I would say really evaluate, is that the right place for you? Failing that, I think there's a lot of people who are unable to switch jobs, organizations, change career paths. And I work with a lot of those people. And I think one of the ways they're coping better is to not forget that sense of self that I talked about at the beginning, right? Yes, the organization has values that they paid tens of thousands of pounds for and nobody listens to. We all know that too well. But look at your values. Look at how you're showing up. Do the best that you can. Disassociate as much as you can. You're surviving. Literally, you're surviving that environment. You're doing what you need to do, and clearly taking care of responsibilities outside as well. The least harm caused to you, the better. Let things break if they need to. And you can't be everything to everyone all of the time. It is not humanly possible. And it's not fair that anyone should expect that of you.
Yeah. And that's all of the soft things that only Sunaina can help say.
Right.
And
At least I didn't say the F word.
we're kind of emphasizing the heart of saying no that we talked about earlier, right? ERG, BRG, inclusion groups, whatever the organization calls it. I think there's also that danger of thinking your company is good on inclusion strategy, whatever name you call it, because you have ERGs. Because what you've done is you've shifted all of the responsibilities of fixing stuff on the shoulders of these leaders without providing structure and resources, right? So as an ERG leader, understanding when to say no, how to say no, and maybe finding those spaces. We are talking about learning how to set your boundaries. I think sometimes we know that it's not everybody that has the privilege of walking away. Right, we got to pay the bills. We're working within the systems, and sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is maybe finding a space or some years, the right years and spaces where you can actually be free in a way that relieves some tension off of you and encourages you.
You talked about, they organizations give opportunity for networks to come together. Let them get on with it, shift the responsibility, no budget, no support. Another thing is no training. And to what Junior's just said there, right? The leadership skills that you need in these roles, whether you're leading the network or, part of the community, you're still delivering on something. No one gets training for that. And that includes everything from saying no to public speaking, to managing upwards, there is so much to do.
Right.
And yet nobody gives them training for this.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's like what we saw in 2020, right? When suddenly everybody overnight had a head of DEI role that was manufactured overnight without the work being done to develop a strategy around it within the organization. And then you place somebody who is passionate, gets put in that role without support, gets promoted into that role and given the responsibility, and then the leadership ends up.
Lola, I can't tell you how many leaders I have mentored and coached in all these years who didn't even know what a strategy was or how to put one together. Of course, they knew, my apologies, but how to put it together. They didn't know what it meant to even align to the business strategy, how they need to feed in, how they can feed off, what the two-way relationship was. HR didn't want to work with them. I'm sorry, it's a HR thing, isn't it? Not a HR thing, but there's just this kind of clash in a lot of organizations where DEI sits in HR. It doesn't sit in HR. This person owns it, that person owns it.
Yeah, I hear you.
So these leaders came into something because of a real personal pain, passion to want to make things better. Of course, someone approaches you and says, here's some responsibility to make a change and to create impact. And you're like, yes, but then they turned the lights off. They cut the power. They stopped you from being supported, funded, upskilled. They didn't even give you a guidebook as to how this function would sit. Hello.
Right.
And now how many of those leaders have burnt out through no fault of their own? If you're not set up for success, what do you expect?
What do you expect? Yeah. Which is why a conversation like this is important. How to protect yourself, how to keep yourself within a system that is not working. And I think we talked about boundaries, but I also want to talk about that word, resilience.
That's another word like burnout. Yeah, it's another word like burnout that, again, organizations just have diluted the meaning of, or like misaligned that narrative. I don't think, is it resilience? It's not a leadership flex. I don't much like that word. I think it's endurance. We're enduring toxic cultures. We're enduring
mechanisms. Survival mechanisms that has happened. It's like being a parent, like your child, something is wrong with your child and you go on autopilot, and then because the first thing you're thinking of, I remembered my youngest having a surgery, and talking about it later, I'm like, everybody, how did you were still, I'm like, I didn't have a choice. I had to do what needed to be done so that my child will be okay. I don't crash or burn until later.
And sometimes you don't have time to. It's like too busy.
Right. And sometimes that's what we count as normal within organization, and we praise as resilience. And I just wanted you to talk about those words and those terms and those traits that we support when we are working within systems that are broken, systems that are not working. And how can I protect myself? What are some overused words that I need to move away from? And how do I act? What does real self-leadership look like for me as an employee, as an individual?
All right, Auntie's coming up with this. Stop lying to yourself. We tell the dirtiest lies to ourselves, right? I will rest at the end of this project. Oh, no, I'll go on a holiday. I'll take leave. I'll take annual leave. And then you finish the project. And then, oh my gosh, it's busy season. Okay, I can't do it. I need to do that. Okay, I'll take a couple of days off, a long weekend at the end of this. Okay, the end of this happens,
and the next one is waking up.
And then you lie to yourself and you say, I'll have a spa day. So we've gone from taking annual leave and having a vacation to having a long weekend to having a spa day. Something else comes up. I don't know, maybe it's, an observance for the ERGs, and what events and all those projects that take so much of our effort. So then you throw yourself into something else, and then you're like, oh, I'll just take Monday morning off. Oh, no, I can't, because constant lies to ourselves. And that's definitely the cycle I was in, right? So I think honor your rest. Rest is not a dirty word. Before it's forced rest. I didn't rest, I think, in a period of 2 or 3 years. I don't know how much I rolled my annual leave over and over and over. I turned up to work, with the worst heads, feeling awful, depleted, still functioning. And a lot of the work that ERGs are doing is unseen emotional labor. That is hard work. Yeah. So when you're carrying all of that and denying yourself rest, it's serious. Like, that's just a whole different type of burnout territory that you come into. And I got to the point where my doctor literally, I thought I was just going in because I had neck ache, backache, 6 weeks of physio hadn't helped.
Yeah.
Right. The body keeps the score. My body was going, girl, stop. So the doctor signed me off for 2 weeks medical leave, like certified. And it took me 3 days to go and build up the courage to tell my boss that I needed to do this. And the first week of those 2 weeks was me decommissioning my guilt, my soul, my attachment, letting everyone know, it's ridiculous. So stop lying to yourself. And as Junior's just said there, the power of pause. Yeah, we absolutely underestimate it. So rest is really
important. I said, stop lying to yourself. That's lying to yourself.
Yeah. And rest doesn't have to mean a 12-hour sleep, because sometimes even 12 hours sleep isn't enough. But there are other ways to rest, right? There's creative rest. There is, I love a good sofa snooze. It is not a full night's sleep, but it's moments that recharge you or distract you or bring you joy or fuel your soul in other ways. There's 7 types of rest. Google it. They really help me in my recovery. And I think when you re-engage with nature, with whatever creative things that you enjoy, journaling, I'm not one for journaling. I'll leave you a 4-hour podcast voice note, but I will not journal. But art, dancing, whatever it is, re-engage with that and fuel your soul, because a lot of the time you're depleted and exhausted and you're feeling this hurt because you've just forgotten the fun things in life. So re-engage with that. I think ask for support.
Ask for support. I was thinking of rest. As you were talking about rest, one of the things that came to my mind is, I listen to people that talk about, spa. I got to use the spa. I have, my brain does not stop in a place like the spa. Spa is actually not very restful for me. But one of the things I love is going by the water, by the ocean, because the waves, that white noise is a little different for me. And even workout is more restful for me sometimes than sitting still, because then I'm engaging my physical body.
Yeah.
And then my mind gets to rest. Right? It's my brain just constantly keeps going sometimes. So you have to know yourself, bringing it back to the beginning.
So we were at the beginning. Know yourself.
What does rest look like for you? And I think we miss that point sometimes, trying to borrow somebody else's playbook to define how to rest.
So know yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Find the type of rest that works for you. I was going to say ask for help, and I know people do, and they're like, oh, my boss told me there isn't budget, there isn't this. You're asking the wrong way. And then when they've answered you, you haven't responded in a way that you potentially could do better. So what I mean by that is, when you ask for help, first of all, get that job description back out. And that's your tangible evidence to say, this is what I signed up for, this is what I'm delivering on, and these two are not matching. So when you have that conversation with your leader, they really have nowhere to hide, and they're like, oh, then you may get support or budget for support, whatever that looks like. But if you don't, then you take your next step, which is, well, that's fair enough. And we do this by email, so it's recorded. Oh, leaders hate me. So it's recorded. I don't care. Because then you're saying, great, not a problem. I would love to do this list of 50 things for you by next week. But given that you've confirmed there's no budget and there's no support, these are the 5 things I will absolutely deliver hard and well. And I'll get to those as I get to those. Right? So that's respecting your boundaries in a way that's manageable for you, respectable. You've acted with integrity. You've stood your ground. And then how can a leader then keep piling onto you? So you give yourself some breathing space, right?
And maybe to your point, maybe that part of is where a lot of us, we do things without, we just absorb more work and we're not documenting it. We're not working visibly. You're doing 10 things. There are 2 things on your job description and you are struggling because you're doing 10 things. But are you making it clear I'm doing these 10 things so that when 5 gets added, then you can say, here's all the 10 things I'm already pushed to do right now. If you want this 5 by next week, I need to drop at least 7 things. So tell me what one you want me to drop.
Yeah, but people know this, but it becomes their inner battle. And I think they need to communicate that more effectively, or just communicate that would be a good start with their leadership, with their bosses. I mean, if you're a leader of an ERG, you will very likely have a sponsor. Right. 80-90% of ERGs have a sponsor. Manage upwards, tell them, show them, help them to give you air cover. So you may not just have one source of all leadership responses. There may be 2 or 3 channels that you can go to, because to that point, you have to manage up a little, right? In leading yourself, you have to tell others what's working, what's not working, and what's going to break. And to the next action is let it break, because sometimes people just need to see that happen to really appreciate who you are and what you're bringing.
Yep. Thank you. Absolutely. One of the workshops I lead for ERGs and for teams is leading without authority. And that's definitely the role that a lot of ERG leaders find themselves. It's, we've got this whole hierarchy of the way things work within our company, it's the director level, it's the VP level. Then you got people that maybe are not director or VP level being tasked with all of these things that is not being, we're not seeing leadership accountability at the levels that we should see it. And so it's like you're burning yourself out in this circle, trying to do all of these things to fix these things, and nobody here is supporting you.
And I'll give those leaders who, aren't delivering, aren't being held to account, I'll give them a little bit of grace, right? Because they haven't necessarily been onboarded into the world that you're operating in. So if we're talking ERGs, as with anyone else in the ERG, of course, you need to onboard your sponsor. You need to manage their expectations. You need to clearly lay out what you need from them, what is expected, and have that conversation. That's leadership of self leading upwards of the ERG, right? You need to make it clear. You can't just say, okay, this person from the C-suite is now your sponsor. Off you go. See you on International Women's Day. It's not like that. You need to make it very, very clear. My expectation would be for you to have conversations at your peer level, for you to intervene when we can't get things moving, remove blockages or try to help us, advocate in spaces where we won't get into at a more junior level. So onboarding and explaining to them what is expected is important.
Onboarding them. And I think that piece gets missed a lot of times, because a lot of organizations, the executive sponsor of the ERG becomes another pressure point. For the ERG leader, somebody that I have to show up perfectly to report out that we're doing great, to make them know that, oh, we met last month and we did this and we did this, and then the leader gets to clap for you, instead of a partnership and having these people understand their role. Like, why are you there as an executive sponsor? What am I supposed to do? And so not just appointing the executive sponsors, but giving them enough onboarding so they understand what roles they're playing for the ERG leaders.
Without a doubt. And those executive sponsors, when you work with them in partnership, you're putting out an ally and an advocate for the voice of the community that your ERG is representing,
Yeah.
right? Because when they go into their very privileged circles, they're armed with this knowledge, this experience, this engagement that can maybe have a ripple effect.
Right.
Again, in rooms where we can't get
But now
into.
they're elevating things into spaces where they really should be.
Yeah.
And,
Professionally, socially, everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. I just looked at the time now and I was like,
Me
okay,
too.
try to keep this within 45 minutes. We could talk all day, but thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for your insights, advice for leaders, individuals at different levels that are carrying responsibilities for inclusion in this season within systems that are unstructured or systems that are closing down on different things, and people that are still showing up for work, people that are still doing the work. And so is there anything you want to share as we close out on maybe a question that they should sit with as we wrap up this conversation around leading self within systems? And
Yeah.
that question
I didn't
first.
have a question, but I do now. So we started with leading with self, right? And know who you are. So my question to them is, do they know who they are? Do they know what matters, what truly matters, and what they stand for? Because that in today's world is really important, at work or outside. Do they know who they are?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I mentioned briefly a personal board of directors earlier and a professional on the board. And if you're listening and you are one person that feels like, oh, this is me, this is what I'm doing right now, make sure you have people that are your people that you can go through to talk through these things. This is not just a me and my manager conversation or me and my executive sponsor, somebody who would put your own interests, first, and will be able to guide you and advise you. So, people say mentors. I'm using the phrase personal board of directors because sometimes we need at least 3 or 4 people holding different roles in our life. Like before I quit corporate America, I had somebody that I was talking to who's led companies, who's worked in corporate America and who had been part of my career for the 7 years prior. And so this was somebody that I trusted, that knew my journey and could guide me months before I made the move, to say, before you made the move, here are some things to think about. I had somebody who was more my personal person, who knew when I needed to go talk to a healthcare professional. Like, you don't sound like you're doing okay, right? So make sure you align in your life. Who are the key people that I need to be having conversations with, that care about me, that see me, that can help me understand myself? Is that a therapist? Is that a coach? Is that a couple of mentors? Build your own circle. And if you can get a professional auntie in there, Sunaina has that as a LinkedIn thing, but I think the definition of professional auntie is what she does. It's somebody that understands the systems that you work in, but that would help you assess what are the resources, what are the structures that are in place, how can you navigate through it, and they can talk you through. They're not speaking out of the textbook. They're speaking from insights into the same systems that you're navigating. So find a professional auntie. I don't know if Sunaina is available. She's probably taking a lot of people, but how do we work with you? Where can people connect with you? Where can people explore your work?
So we're on LinkedIn, so it would be rude not to say. Follow me on LinkedIn, connect. Always happy to answer any questions that drop into my DMs.
And she has a lot of stuff too as resources already.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions. So yeah, if I would say scroll my content first, if that's you, like if it sits right, come join. It's actually a community. It's not a network. We have a really lovely community. There's safety, there's fun, there's truth, and it's a special place. So if that's you, join us. If you need a professional auntie, reach out, no problem.
Oh, thank you so much for all those that joined live. I'm just sifting through the comments. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your contribution. If you're watching this on replay, please still feel free to drop your questions and comments. we're both active on LinkedIn, of course, so we'll be tracking on all of that. But I also love to have, if there's personal experiences that maybe you don't want to share here, that you want to drop in our DM. Professional Auntie and I are not worried about sharing our opinion, but I know a lot of times people are not comfortable to say things because your employer is there and your manager is reading. But there are real people that are going through stuff within organizations. I'm just here to say, reach out, ask for help, find the right community, find the right people that will protect you as a person, as human first. Thank you so much for joining.